Legal Momentum, founded in 1970 as the Now Legal Defense and Education Fund, is the country's first and longest serving legal advocacy organization dedicated to advancing gender equality. For over 50 years, Legal Momentum has been steadfast in our mission to advance women's rights under law and in our society. Throughout our 50-year history, Legal Momentum has pursued precedent-setting litigation to define and defend women's rights. We pursue cases that will not only achieve justice for individual clients, but have the potential to influence the way laws are interpreted, applied, and enforced in the future. Decisions in these high-impact cases, filed across the spectrum of issues affecting gender equality, have been cited in countless subsequent rulings, expanding our impact exponentially. In the 1980s, Legal Momentum was instrumental in bringing to the Supreme Court the case of a woman who was a star rainmaker in her firm, but was denied a partnership because she was told she needed to walk and dress more femininely, wear jewelry, and wear makeup. This 1989 decision became the first case in which the court utilized psychological research about sex stereotyping in the workplace to hold that sex stereotyping is impermissible sex discrimination under Title VII. It has become the foundational case courts cite in holding employers responsible for discriminating against LGBTQ and transgender employees. Legal Momentum's Rights Now peer education program empowers youth, especially young women of color, by developing their knowledge and leadership on issues of gender-based violence and discrimination, and charging them with bringing that knowledge back to their own communities and training others. Over 1,000 youth have been trained over the past 4 years.
Discrimination is a driving factor in perpetuating the wage gap, and that the law plays a critical, essential role in tackling this discrimination.
Legal Momentum's Women Valued initiative creates comprehensive resources aimed at empowering women workers with knowledge about their rights and how to assert them, with a focus on the most vulnerable. Legal Momentum's National Judicial Education Program, NJEP, established in 1980, pioneered judicial education about gender bias and the ways it undermines fairness in our justice system. NJEP's trainings, grounded in legal, social science, and neuroscience research, have achieved broad recognition and prompted state Supreme Courts nationwide to establish task forces to examine gender bias in their own court systems and recommend reforms.
Judges should be required to continue their education. What we need to do is to continue this momentum, to do what you are all doing, to talk about it, to educate. We all need to partner together and join in this fight. Thank you so much.
Legal Momentum's deep understanding of the law's impact on women makes us a critical resource for elected officials, peer organizations, and those seeking legal guidance and referrals.
So at Legal Momentum, the organization for which I work, we're seizing this moment to effect changes that strengthen our laws in the U.S., and we're using our existing laws to challenge the people and workplaces that harbor sexual predators.
For years, Legal Momentum has been attuned to the most pressing challenges facing women across the country through our SIMS Gender Equality Helpline, where those seeking assistance can call to seek free legal guidance and resources. We consistently receive hundreds of calls a year from individuals in all 50 states. Beginning in 1991, Legal Momentum worked closely with then Senator Biden to draft the Violence Against Women Act, VAWA, focused on domestic violence, sexual assault, dating violence, and stalking. Since 1994, VAWA has provided billions of dollars for victim services, education for justice system professionals, and prevention programs aimed at ending gender-based violence. VAWA requires reauthorization every 5 years. Legal Momentum continues to play a leadership role in each reauthorization.
I know you're giving me the Legal Momentum Hero Award, but I want to point out that the real heroes, my heroes, are people who have been victimized.
Since 1970, Legal Momentum has been in the forefront of every effort to advance women's rights. The challenges continue, and Legal Momentum will be there to meet them.
So let's do it. Let's do it. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm delighted to see everyone, whether you're in person or joining virtually, to celebrate Aiming High and the 50th anniversary of Legal Momentum. I'm Eileen Simon. I'm honored to chair our board. The organization has boldly changed the landscape for women's rights over the past 50 years, and I'm so proud of what we've accomplished. I'm equally proud of where we will go and how much more we have yet to accomplish. Women's rights remain human rights. It's the mission I stand behind, and so does the board. Legal Momentum plays a pivotal role in so many areas of the fight for women's rights. I want to focus on two: high-impact litigation and legislative advocacy. As you just saw, Legal Momentum has been involved in litigation to define and defend women's rights. Our expert legal team pursues impactful cases that will shape the future of women's rights. Legal Momentum seeks justice for individual clients and tries to influence the way laws are interpreted, applied, and enforced. In fact, opinions in these high-impact cases that touch on many aspects of gender equality have been cited by judges in countless decisions. This not only magnifies the impact of an individual case, but can set precedent. Legal Momentum is literally stepping forward to create law. In the legislative space, elected officials and peers turn to us for our expertise. We are the source because we know how the law affects women and where it needs to change. In the early 1990s, Legal Momentum worked closely with then Senator Biden to draft the Violence Against Women Act. This was and is significant because VAWA focuses on protecting women who experience domestic and dating violence, sexual assault, or stalking. And then every 5 years, Legal Momentum helps ensure that VAWA is reauthorized. It's mission critical. Our legislative advocacy leverages the network of experts and the collective staff experience to craft and influence legislation that protects and advances gender equality every day. Chairing the Legal Momentum Board gives me a unique vantage point. I sit at a table of incredibly talented and dedicated directors who share our mission. The board has a key role in setting our strategic plan. My sincerest thanks to my fellow directors, both present and past, for their vision and their time. And I want to extend a deep and important thank you to Legal Momentum's tireless, energetic, and incredible CEO, Carol Baldwin Moody. During her time as CEO, Carol has unified this organization so it can do its work seamlessly and carry out its mission. It's my pleasure to turn our program over to Carol.
Good evening, everyone. Wow, 50 plus years. Thank you, Eileen, for your wonderful welcoming remarks and your incredible work as our board chair. While we are reminded of so much we have been able to accomplish and contribute to gender equity and equality, there is still work to be done. Just last week, the White House issued its national strategy on gender equity and equality, the Gender Strategy, and we had the privilege to participate. The White House Gender Strategy claimed, Advancing gender equity and equality is fundamental to every individual's economic security, safety, health, and ability to exercise their most basic rights. Wow, sounds almost exactly like the mission statement of Legal Momentum. We maintain the unwavering commitment to gender equity, honoring the inextricable links to racial justice and thus achieving equity for all. The strategy goes on to say, yet no country in the world has achieved gender equality, and we are at an inflection point. The gender strategy goes on to identify 10 interconnected priorities, and one of them is human rights and equality under the law. Again, our long-standing tagline, the best way to protect women and girls is through the law. And how do we do it? We lead, litigate, educate, advocate, and defend. Eileen highlighted our high-impact litigation and advocacy, and I want to highlight our education because that cuts across everything we do. From our Rights Now peer educator program, our Women Valued initiatives, our National Judicial Education Program, and the Sims Legal Momentum Gender Equality Helpline, which were all highlighted in the video, we impact thousands of people every year. We obviously cannot do this without incredible support from all of you, and of course, the deeply committed staff at Legal Momentum. All of you especially includes our pro bono partners without whom we cannot do this work. As CEO, I remain so proud to lead this organization, and it's my pleasure to thank the following sponsors: Grand Underwriters, Comcast Corporation, Eileen Murray, Davis Polk and Wardwell LLP, MasterCard, Paul Weiss Rifkin Wharton and Garrison LLP, The Coca-Cola Company, Citi, Underwriter, Cravath, Swain & Moore LLP, Better Factors, Holland & Knight LLP, Morrison & Foster LLP, Saramount, Simpson Thacher & Bartler LLP, Ventus Inc., Visa Inc., Patrons, American International Group AIG, Deloitte, Sponsors, Bright House Financial, CIT, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, Virtue Financial, Wachtell Lipton Rosen and Katz, Charles River Associates. And now, I would like to turn the program over to Karen Kaplowitz. She has graciously and tirelessly volunteered her time to chair this incredible Amy High event since she created it over 20 years ago. It's my honor to work with her and with all of you.
Thank you, Carol, for the generous remarks. Celebrating Legal Momentum's 50th anniversary is very personal to me. 50 years ago, I graduated from the University of Chicago Law School, fired up and empowered to fight for women's rights as a trial lawyer in Los Angeles. We had a lot to fight about. Finding blatant incidents of discrimination was like shooting fish in a barrel. With my partners in a women-owned law firm, we even sued the California Court of Appeal because the court refused to consider a woman to be deputy clerk of the court. The court settled quickly. When I became a business development strategist and moved east in the late 90s, I was thrilled to find a new way to fight for gender equality by creating the Aiming High Awards to help Legal Momentum establish links to the emerging ranks of powerful women business leaders. In 2001, we called the Aiming High Awards a celebration of the power of women. So, how has Legal Momentum attracted such powerful support? The main reason is the importance of our mission and the quality of the work. I want to share one of our other secrets, the snowball effect. Today, awards and gatherings to recognize powerful women are commonplace. Not so much in 2001. We were lucky that Shelley Lazarus, chair of Ogilvy and Mather, was the first woman to agree to be honored. Because we could point to such a prominent woman business leader, we could recruit others. The snowball grew when our honorees vouched for us and introduced other powerful women and men to support Legal Momentum's work. Terry Dial, CEO of Wells Fargo's Consumer Bank, was our first great champion. She led us to a whole series of amazing honorees. Patricia Dunn of Barclays Global Investors, Maggie Wilderotter of Frontier Communications, Lynn Pike of Capital One, and Deborah McWhinney of Citi Personal Wealth Management. Debbie, in turn, introduced us to Jane Fraser, then CEO of Citi's Global Private Bank, and now Citi's CEO. This year, the tradition continues. Special thanks to 3 of our past honorees, Kelly Toulier of Visa, Deborah Cafaro of Ventus, and Brad Karp of Paul Weiss for introducing 3 of this year's next generation leaders. Thanks also to our media partner, NACD Directorship Magazine, whose current issue includes an article on the Aiming High Awards. Thank you, editor Judy Warner. I'm proud that the Aiming High Awards and our many champions have sustained Legal Momentum's vital work for over 20 years, financially and with leadership and guidance. Board Chair Eileen Simon was herself a 2015 Aiming High honoree. President and CEO Carol Baldwin Moody was introduced to Legal Momentum when she was honored in 2011. This year, as we mark Legal Momentum's 50th anniversary, we start a brand new cycle. The fight for gender equality is not over, and we are fortunate today to honor 2 giants, Eileen Murray and Tom Reed, and to recognize a new generation of powerful business leaders to support Legal Momentum. I can't wait for you to meet this year's Aiming High honorees and next generation leaders. So I turn you back to Legal Momentum's dynamic president and CEO, Carol Baldwin Moody. Take it away, Carol.
To present the Man of Distinction Award to Comcast Thomas J. Reed, I am pleased to introduce a great friend of Legal Momentum, Davis Polk and Wardwell Executive Compensation and Benefits Partner, Kyoko, who was Tom's partner when he was managing partner of Davis Polk. Please welcome Kyoko.
It's my extreme pleasure to introduce Tom Reed, our 2021 Man of Distinction. Tom is not only my firm's former managing partner, but also a mentor, an advocate, and my friend. He is one of those rare human beings who finds time to help each person he meets to become the best version of themselves. For women in a profession where men are more numerous, Tom has individually and institutionally transformed the workplace, and for that we are all truly grateful. I first met Tom when I interviewed to be a summer associate at Davis Polk. Tom had a charming Scottish accent that made me instantly think of Sean Connery's James Bond. And with it, he helped me to explain why Davis Polk was unique. He explained that it was the firm's culture to be collegial and team-oriented, and he spoke about how the culture impacted the daily lives of our lawyers and staff. His remarks have stayed with me to this day. Fast forward a couple of decades, after leaving for Morgan Stanley and coming back, Tom became the head of our corporate department and then ultimately the head of our firm. As a leader, Tom always seeks to understand the perspective of others. Tom is one of the most well-read, well-connected people I know, so he's very capable of reaching his own views, but he chooses to strike the right balance between developing his own vision while considering the views of others. Tom is liberal and inclusive in the true sense of those words. When Tom was still the head of our corporate department, we discussed diversity and inclusion well before those terms became the buzzwords that they are today. Because Tom is white, male, and straight and still sported his charming accent, I commented that he might not be familiar with the experience of a diverse person. He paused and then shared without any chip on his shoulder that he grew up Catholic in Presbyterian Scotland, and he knew firsthand what it felt like to be a minority. Ironically, I was a diverse person with stereotyped Tom, and I learned that I should never judge a book by its cover. When Tom became the managing partner of Davis Polk, he made a point to advocate for women and other diverse lawyers. He made sure that we were given leadership positions, that we had a genuine voice, and that we were called out for our noteworthy and hidden accomplishments. According to Tom, the only diversity program that works is when people feel welcome, appreciated, and encouraged. He knew from experience that institutions only change when the people within are changed. Since then, Tom has become the trusted advisor of numerous CEOs, including Brian Roberts at Comcast, and he was given one of those proverbial offers that he could not refuse. We were sad to see Tom go, but happy for him. And by all accounts, he has continued to make the difference at Comcast that he made at Davis Polk. Tom was a champion of women before it became trendy to do so. He has been a champion of people before we all became aware of the term human capital management. And he does this because this is just who he is. He cares about people. I and countless others have been the beneficiary of Tom's leadership at the highest level and his caring at the most micro. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored and touched to introduce my friend, Tom Reed.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great honor to be here at the annual Aiming High reception to accept the Man of Distinction Award for 2021, a year that marks the 50th anniversary of Legal Momentum. Happy 50th birthday, Legal Momentum, and many thanks for all the great work you do. I have been an admirer and supporter of Legal Momentum since I became the managing partner of Davis Polk. I was introduced to the organization by my wonderful partner, Kyoko Takahashi-Lin, when she asked for the firm's support in 2012 for honoree Kathy Zackham of Comcast. I knew nothing of Comcast or Kathy back then, but today I know Kyoko and Kathy as fabulous champions of gender equality in the legal profession. As I prepared for this evening's event, I started to wonder about the title of the award I was to receive, Man of Distinction. What was it that I had done to be called distinct? It is the case that I had tried as Davis Polk's managing partner, and I try hard today as Comcast's chief legal officer, to protect and advance the cause of gender equality. But by any visible metric, women lawyers, women partners, women in leadership, all I did at Davis Polk was tread water. At Comcast, I think I've maintained the status quo also, but it's a better status quo for women at Comcast and, in fact, in industry generally. All three of the general counsel for Comcast business lines are women, including Lynn Chariton, herself a former Legal Momentum honoree. And the number of general counsel in corporate America has been on a steadily improving trend for the last several years. And I am delighted that later this evening, you will also have the chance to meet Deputy General Counsel Adrienne Gittins, a next-generation leader at Comcast. So, I came to the conclusion that it must be the distinguished gray hair I had developed in the 10 years since first getting to know Legal Momentum that was the reason for the award. But in all seriousness, I did continue to reflect on why those gender equality metrics, or other diversity metrics for that matter, had not improved in private practice and in law firms, despite my efforts and the efforts of other well-intentioned leaders, both male and female. And at the same time, by coincidence, I happened to be doing a lot of thinking about the post-pandemic return to the office conundrum. As I studied the many different approaches to returning to the office, it struck me that the more strident calls this spring for a rapid and full return to law firm office buildings in the Northeast came almost exclusively from male leaders, and mainly from those heavily influenced by Wall Street practice. These are in fact the firms that provide the career start for many of our brightest lawyers, about half of them invariably female, so it's an important constituency to examine. In the end, those strident calls looked pretty foolish as the Delta variant took over, so firms eventually moderated their approaches. But what was the motivation for the bravado in the first place? The most common rationale by far was that only an office building could support the law firm apprenticeship model and the mentoring that flows from that model. I'm not so sure about that. Let me make a few observations that apply to all law firms. First, for more than a couple of decades now, clients have rarely felt the need to meet in person as opposed to set up conference calls, which allowed everyone to multitask, watching several screens at the same time and checking their emails. This also made it possible for the law firm team members to sit separately in their own offices, which seriously damaged the teaching moment. Second, lack of feedback. The search for maximum efficiency had driven training and coaching to non-partner and even non-lawyer personnel. Finally, lack of career coaching. For many lawyers at various firms, but more often female lawyers, I've routinely heard that their firms made them feel anonymous and partners seemed detached. I could go on. For example, how can you expect apprenticeship and mentoring when partners are constantly jumping firms for higher compensation? The point is that this fabled apprenticeship model was at best history for one part of today's profession and just not relevant for a much larger part. But the fact that so many male legal leaders wanted to believe in that model at the same time as they were reading the same polls as I was that showed women and minority lawyers were distinctly unenthusiastic about returning to the office told me something. That the structural obstacles to change at law firms, whether it be the billable hour, the rigid partnership tracks, the lack of fair solutions for childcare and elder care, combined with that impossible to catch thief of opportunities from women and minorities that is implicit bias, would continue to put the goal of gender equality in the legal profession just beyond our grasp. But that doesn't mean we should not still reach for that goal. My call here today is that we really look for the opportunity to effect structural change. Use the lessons we learned during the pandemic. For too long, we have squandered the abilities of women in the profession. Long-term birth rate decline and restrictive immigration policies mean that such squandering is no longer just immoral, it is also dangerously wasteful. The pandemic unleashed massive liquidity stimulus, which increased risk appetites, which spawned a deal frenzy like no other boom, and the lawyers who dealt with that demand did so largely from their homes, and their productivity soared. Now, I'm not saying that we should shut down all our offices and go all remote forever. In fact, I don't have any master plan for the future of work. But I am hoping that we have learned, just like we are living in the age of personalized medicine, we're also entering an era of personalized work. An era where lawyers have plenty of options to choose from, and law firms do not. That doesn't mean we need to turn work into leisure. In fact, I think greater personalized engagement between a firm and its lawyers can only increase productivity. In addition, we have plenty of technological enablers for presence, culture, mentorship, and collaboration, despite physical distance. If we can learn the lessons of pandemic work and not bury them because it's not how 50-something, mostly white, mostly male lawyers were trained, I really do think there's a new opportunity to focus on the talents and aspirations of each and every lawyer we have and move on from the old approach where assumptions based on past career outcomes for whole categories of people, the largest being women, sadly did guarantee future outcomes. This is not wishful optimism for what already too busy partners should find the time to do. This is cold-eyed realism as to what the smartest law firm leaders must do if their firms are to be sustainable. We all know the histories of firms that rose and fell on the fortunes of a particular practice area or geography. The disruptive challenge and opportunity here is much greater than that, and is in the category of past experiences of pandemics and wars. The disruption here is the discovery of exciting new possibilities for life and work during the pandemic, combined with the need to engage every lawyer and squander none to meet client demand. This may be the most important moment of opportunity for gender equality in the legal profession since women were admitted to law school. And we all, with Legal Momentum in the vanguard, should make sure that opportunity is realized.
To present the Champion for the Future Award to Eileen Murray, we are fortunate to have Jean Marie McFadden, partner and co-head of the New York office of the Brunswick Group. Jean Marie worked closely with Eileen when Jean Marie was Morgan Stanley's Chief Communications Officer. Please welcome Jean Marie McFadden.
Hi, my name is Jean Marie McFadden, and I'm a partner and co-head of the New York office of the Brunswick Group. And it's my great honor to introduce Eileen Murray, this year's inaugural recipient of the Champion of the Future Award. When I was asked to introduce Eileen, I was a little like, what else can I say about her? She's been introduced so many times for so many awards. What's left to say? It's getting to be a little like Meryl Streep and the Oscars. When I first worked with Eileen, she was already a bit of a legend at Morgan Stanley. Treasurer, controller, chief accounting officer, chief operating officer of the investment bank. Then at CSFB, she was the first woman to serve on Credit Suisse's executive board. You may not know, she is also the longest serving chief executive at Bridgewater outside of founder Ray Dalio. I guess there's really nothing more to say than this. Throughout her career, Eileen has made and continues to make a difference. She made a difference to me and hundreds of others. It made a difference to a lot of the women who walked into those financial institutions and wondered if they could see themselves making a career there. She helped a lot of people see possibility. You need to see possibility in order to make change. Whether it was at Morgan Stanley, Credit Suisse, or Bridgewater, Eileen's leadership on so many issues, pay equity, diversity and inclusion, treating people the right way, has created a lasting positive change. I can't think of a better way to recognize that kind of impact than Legal Momentum's inaugural Champion of the Future Award. An award that recognizes the bridges that we create to travel the deepest divides and the ones who have worked tirelessly to build them. What we're doing here, the progress we want to see in the world, no one person can do it, and no one generation can do it. Legal Momentum recognizes that and created this award to honor that long journey. It couldn't go to a more deserving person than Eileen. It's my great honor to introduce my great friend and mentor, Eileen Murray.
Thank you, Jean Marie, for those kind words, and thank you for introducing me. You rock. And thank you, Karen, and to the Legal Momentum team for all the important work they do. You know, 40 years ago, when I took my first job in the financial services industry, it was pretty clear to me that the number of women in the workplace was a fraction, which is being kind, of what I saw when I was on campus. It was clear because it was obvious. You saw it in the halls, in every meeting, in the elevators. You saw the absence. It was so obvious. And I thought, maybe naively, that this imbalance would be fixed in the short term. I don't know, call it a couple of years. I just didn't know how naive I was. For the last 40 years, women have made up more than 50% of college graduates. When I started in financial services, there was about a 0.5 percentage point of women in senior management roles. Today, that number is 17%. And I know a number of you have heard me say this. I just don't know whether to cry or do the happy dance giving those numbers. What I didn't know back then was that Legal Momentum had already been fighting this fight for 10 years by the time I arrived at the party. The founders of Legal Momentum made sure right from the start that women who sought equality in the workplace had the resources that they needed to have their cases heard. And let's face it, ladies, it wasn't easy. Some of the finest legal minds of the 20th century of any gender made up the core of this impressive organization. The cases they brought forward that led to decision that established fairness in some very basic ways are almost hard to imagine now. For example, blocking an airline from firing a female flight attendant just because she got married. Blocking a policy that barred women from holding jobs that required them to lift more than 35 pounds. Mothers out there, does that sound weird? Ensuring female prison guards were paid the same as male guards. Ensuring fair hiring practices so you didn't have two different standards based on gender for the same job. And quite frankly, Legal Momentum being a visible presence that women nationwide can see as a resource for them to turn when they are being silenced. And we have been silenced and we no longer will be. Understanding that history shows us just how much work was required just to get a somewhat equal seat at the table. I've been guided by the past and stand with those who came before me. I can't say enough about my mother, the strongest woman I've ever met and who made me who I am. People like John Mack, a mentor of mine, and Jean Marie's, who put women in high, powerful, and profile positions long before it was fashionable. And not because they were women, but because they could do the job well. And maybe, just maybe, they could do those job wells because they were women. But just as much as we look to the past, we have to look to the future as well. This next generation of leader may just be starting out in their careers, but they are putting equity, respect, inclusion at the center of their strategy. We have to recognize that courage. We really do. And we have to let them know we see their work and we have their backs. Because no one of us is going to be able to do this alone. The issues are just too complex and carry the weight of too much history for that. Look, we can't be giving out awards anymore just for showing up with what we should expect as what I would call table stakes, as would you. That was great when the goal was just raising awareness. But honestly, I think we all know that we have a tremendous, tremendous opportunity. We haven't made nearly enough progress. But if we do make more progress and get more equity in the workplace, we're all going to benefit. The workers, the companies, the communities, the communities that host them, families. As I've said before, and I really sincerely mean this, any strategy that puts people at its center, I have seen and I know will pay dividends over the long term. So I want to thank this next generation. It's up to you. You're taking the mantle. This next generation of leaders are taking up this effort and bringing new and ingenious ways to demonstrate the value of an inclusive workplace. So thank you, Legal Momentum, for your 50-year journey in making sure women have the resources they need to be heard when they are otherwise silenced. Thank you for being a place for me to open up my voice. And thank you all for taking the time to come out tonight to keep this journey for progress alive. It has to go on. You know, they say we stand on the shoulders of giants. I don't like that saying, not as a woman. As women, we stand together. No one higher, no one lower. So this future generation, onwards and upwards. Thank you and good night.
To celebrate our 50th anniversary and prepare Legal Momentum for the future, we asked our supporters to tell us about very special women leaders inside their organizations, the next generation leaders who share Legal Momentum's commitment to gender equality, leaders who will help advance our mission. We were delighted by the outpouring of support and we're thrilled to recognize these amazing women. Jessica Carey, Paul Weiss Rifkin Wharton and Garrison, LLP. Adrian Gittins, Comcast Corporation. Dana Sessions, Davis Polk, LLP. Suba Barry, Sarah Mount. Carrie S. Roberts, Ventus. Rabia Sheikh, Visa. Lara Rios, Holland & Knight, LLP. Alexis Amiskua of Morrison & Foster, LLP. Elizabeth Cooper of Simpson, Thatcher & Bartlett, LLP. Faiza Saeed of Cravath, Swain & Moore, LLP, and Val Smith City. It's my pleasure to introduce many of them to you right now. Please watch.
Hello. I'd like to give a heartfelt thank you to Legal Momentum for selecting me as a next generation leader. It is a wonderful honor to be recognized by Legal Momentum. They turned 50 this year and are the longest-running legal advocacy group for women in the United States. I am proud to support Legal Momentum and its work to empower women. I co-lead the litigation department at Paul Weiss. I'm fortunate that my law firm is chaired by Brad Karp, a 2017 Legal Momentum Man of Distinction. Brad was honored for his tireless efforts on behalf of the women around him. Those women include me. Without Brad's support and the opportunities he gave me, I would not be here today. At Paul Weiss, we fundamentally believe that every woman should have an equal opportunity to succeed in every aspect of her life. Historically and today, as a firm, we're continually striving to level the playing field and to maximize opportunities for women and diverse lawyers. Paul Weiss's commitment to breaking down barriers dates back to the firm's earliest days. Did you know we were the first firm to break down the barrier of Jews practicing with Gentiles? In 1946, we were the first major New York law firm to make a woman a partner, Caroline Acker. Then in 1949, we were the first major New York firm ever to hire a black lawyer, William Coleman. And Dr. Pauli Murray found a home here as the firm's first black female associate in 1956. Did you know where Supreme Court Justices Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Sonia Sotomayor, and Elena Kagan began their legal careers? You guessed it, Paul Weiss. So Paul Weiss has been a launching pad for so many women. And I am one of those women. I'm thrilled to be the first female co-chair of the Paul Weiss Litigation Department. For many years, I also led the firm's Women's Initiative Committee, focused on the success of all women lawyers at our firm. Paul Weiss created a workplace that helped me succeed. When my 2 children were born, I was an associate. I took full advantage of the firm's generous parental leave policies, and I came back to work on a reduced, flexible schedule. Not only was that allowed, but it was encouraged. In fact, the year I made partner, I spent about half of it out on parental leave. It is clear to me that my personal choices to start a family were not a career setback. Legal Momentum's work has touched my life and the lives of so many women today. Think about their efforts to secure landmark workplace equality laws like Title VII, the Pregnancy Discrimination Act, and the Equal Pay Act. And Legal Momentum continues today to lead legal and policy solutions, among them gender-based violence and human trafficking, which are important to me and the focus of my pro bono work. I am honored to support this mission and grateful for your recognition today. Thank you, Legal Momentum.
Thank you, Legal Momentum, for this honor. I applaud you for your advocacy for the past 50 years to advance the cause of gender equality. I will continue to strive to embody Legal Momentum's mission in the work I do every day. I also want to thank Tom Reed for nominating me for this distinction and for his leadership and mentorship. I joined Comcast in March 2020, the week that we learned that we were in a global pandemic. Tom's steady leadership and the mentorship I received from Tom and other executives, including Candy Lawson, our Chief Compliance Officer, gave me great certainty in a time where everything felt uncertain, that I had joined a company that prioritized diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that would invest in me. As I reflect on what it means to be a next generation leader, I think of a quote from a past Legal Momentum board member, Betty Friedan. She said, "Our daughters need to grow up with the same possibilities as our sons." It is a simple yet profound message. As a mother of 5 daughters, the notion that my girls must grow up with the same possibilities as any other person is not theoretical. It is personal. I view it as my personal responsibility to continue to further the mission of Legal Momentum and to push into spaces that girls, particularly Black girls, have not historically occupied. And it is personal to me that as I reach those spaces, I open the door for women coming behind me, hoping and striving for the day when no one needs to hold the door because it will be open to all. Thank you again to Legal Momentum for this honor. I take it as a challenge to live up to the mantle of a leader to the next generation. And it is a challenge I gladly accept because I personally understand how our daughters, my daughters, need to grow up with the same possibilities as our sons. Thank you.
I'm deeply honored to be recognized as a next generation leader, especially by an organization with such an admirable history of successfully advocating for women and girls. Congratulations, Legal Momentum, on your 50th anniversary. I've spent my entire legal career at Davis Polk. I currently serve as co-head of our civil litigation practice. And as a firm-wide hiring partner, I am tasked with shaping and driving the firm's strategy to recruit the best talent. Recruiting the next generation of women leaders is a huge part of that, and I am incredibly proud that 55% of our 2021 summer class were women. When I think about those before me who paved the way, who made it possible for future generations of women to achieve the highest levels of professional success, I'm truly humbled. They worked tirelessly and selflessly just to attain basic workplace equality. It is now our collective responsibility to carry on their work, doing all that we can to welcome in and promote the careers of women, considering the disparities that still exist. What I can tell you after many years in corporate law is that while hard work powers success, supportive colleagues and an equitable workplace are absolutely critical to advancement. This is particularly true for women and diverse lawyers. I know that even in 2021, this cannot be taken for granted. Now, a strong culture doesn't just happen. It needs to be actively nurtured and championed. Throughout my 18 years at Davis Polk, I've had a number of influential mentors and allies. That group includes Tom Reed, this year's Man of Distinction, who was an incredible mentor, supporter, and guide to me during his time as Davis Polk's managing partner. I am proud to be figuratively standing here alongside him tonight. Mentoring our young lawyers, and particularly our young women lawyers, is a critical part of my job. I try to encourage our young women lawyers to develop their careers in the way that is most satisfying for them, both professionally and personally. Much of the progress that has been accomplished to date wouldn't be possible without the pioneering advocacy of organizations like Legal Momentum. While many of us in professional services proactively champion women in our own workplaces, it is imperative that we continue to support organizations that advocate for more vulnerable populations. I would be remiss to not recognize the impact that champions of women's rights, such as Legal Momentum, have made on my career. Knowing the support this movement has, I'm also quite hopeful for future generations of women. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Suba Barry, President of Seramount. I'm honored to be recognized by Legal Momentum, a true champion of women and girls, as a next generation leader. I'm from a family where up until my mother's generation, girls were generally married off at a young age, didn't have the opportunity to even finish high school. In fact, my mother was the first girl in my extended family to receive a college education, and I was the first in my family to be allowed to go away to college. I came to this country from India on a scholarship to attend Rice University in Houston, Texas. The various experiences throughout my life, and I'll name a few of them: learning baseball stats just so I could fit in at school, being the only woman of color in the top 100 out of 16,000 wealth advisors, starting Merrill's first ever multicultural business unit, realizing that working as a commodities trader and being a first-time mom wasn't for me. All these shaped the leader I am today. For the past 25 years, I've made a personal commitment to mentoring women, especially those from underrepresented groups. Each time I receive a request, either directly or indirectly, to mentor someone, I act as though I am helping my younger self. If every man and woman would commit to mentoring one or two others who didn't look like them, think about what would be possible. The fight for gender equality has not yet been won, but progress has been made. This is in part to organizations like Legal Momentum and to committed leaders who are willing to put in the hard work necessary to advance and retain this key talent pool. Seramount started over 40 years ago as Working Mother magazine. It's been a pioneer in women's advancement in the corporate sector. Over the decades, Seramount has evolved from its original focus on working mothers. Today, our much broader goal is to empower inclusive workplaces for all historically underrepresented groups. We help our partners create inclusive cultures where everyone can thrive by providing them the tools, the best practices, and the metrics necessary to move the needle forward. The intersectionality between gender and racial issues will continue to be a hot-button issue for society at large. But I want to leave you with a message of hope. I believe that it will be the young people of today who will make it possible for us to make progress. Why? because their commitment to combat racism and fight for gender equality is accompanied by a mindful resolve and a fierce determination. Their willingness to walk away from organizations whose values do not align with their own is crystal clear. These values may be political, social, or environmental. Millennials make up a majority of today's workforce, and Gen Z is right on their heels. I have a lot of confidence that they will succeed in carrying out our collective mission. Thank you again to Legal Momentum for this honor and the opportunity to support our shared goals of a more equitable world.
It is such an honor to be recognized as one of Legal Momentum's next generation leaders and to share this virtual stage with my accomplished co-honorees. I have been a fan of this legendary organization my entire life. I was an ardent believer in women's rights from an early age. And if you went back to the early 80s and told my 12-year-old self that I would be receiving this honor sitting here today, she would just not have believed it. I'm very aware that my success has been made possible by the work of organizations like Legal Momentum and by the work of women from all walks of life who came before me and challenged the status quo. One of those women is actually my own mother. She was just 19 when I was born. She raised me on her own while working and putting herself through college and then business school. I remember her studying at our kitchen table late at night. I remember going to her office with her on the weekends so she could get ahead in her work for the week. I remember listening to endless business books on tape with her in the car during our daily commutes to and from school, work and school. And I also remember the very real challenges my mom faced in her career because of her circumstances and because she was a woman. Her success was incredibly unlikely. She succeeded anyway. And in the process, she gave me this very real and palpable sense that anything is possible, that my dreams should never be limited by my own circumstances, including my gender. Legal Momentum has done the same for generations of women, including myself. When I was a girl, I read about the legal challenges that this organization brought, and they were a beacon. They inspired me to challenge assumptions, to raise my hand when things didn't make sense, to not just accept conventional wisdom about what a woman could or should be. I was nominated for this award by the chairman and CEO of Ventas, Deborah Cafaro. Debbie has been a successful public company CEO for over 2 decades, an extraordinary accomplishment for anyone of any gender. Debbie is also strongly committed to community, to connection, and to making the world a more just and inclusive place, just like Legal Momentum. And her vitality communicates to me every single day that anything is possible. There is, of course, more work to be done to create a world where merit will always win the day. We all have a responsibility to continue that work, to clear the path, not just for women, but for everyone. Congratulations to Legal Momentum on 50 years of immense success. We need you, and I'm so thankful that you're here.
I am so thrilled to be a part of Legal Momentum's celebration this year and to be able to honor all that Legal Momentum has been able to accomplish over the last 50 years in advancing the cause of gender equality. When we think about the fight for gender equality, we may think about big debates taking place on large stages in grand courtrooms and maybe fancy legislative chambers. We may also think about scores of brave men and women taking to the streets and marching in solidarity. We've lived through some of those moments, and those were all important moments for sure. But I think it's really important to keep in mind that this fight also plays out in our homes, in our schools, and in our workplaces every single day. And it's often fought one woman and one girl at a time. And that's where we all have a role to play as parents, as spouses, and as leaders. On a personal level, when I think about how I have borne witness to this fight in my own life, I think of my parents. Believe it or not, in many cultures and societies, even today in 2021, the birth of a daughter is treated as a cause for mourning. Instead of good wishes and gifts, new parents are treated with pity, and new mothers are made to feel a sense of shame. Years ago, when I was born, there were some who made my parents feel like that. And as the eldest of 4 daughters, I witnessed some of those moments myself when my younger sisters were born. And in some ways, those moments are forever etched on my heart. But the important part of this story is how my parents reacted. They took the pity and the ridicule and turned it into fuel. Fuel to drive their daughters to dream fearlessly and to live up to their God-given potential. That's how they fought for gender equality. I also think of my husband. It's not easy to have a partner or spouse who's devoted to a career outside the home. And I know that there have been times when some have questioned my choice to work outside the home and not play the role of a traditional wife. But each and every time, my husband has responded to those criticisms by only holding my hand a bit tighter and cheering me on a bit louder. And as we look to celebrate 19 years of marriage this December, he continues his part in advancing gender equality by being an amazing father to our 2 daughters. I also think about the incredible mentors that I've had the privilege of learning from in my life. In particular, I think of Kelly Toulier, our Chief People and Administrative Officer at Visa, and in fact, a recipient of Legal Momentum's Aiming High Award in 2013. I met Kelly many years ago, and I guess at some point she saw something in me and invited me to join her team. But that was just the start, both for me as well as for so many of my other female colleagues. She has always made sure that there is space for us in that proverbial room, a spot for us at the table, and that we always have the opportunity to use our voices and be heard. Finally, I think about Visa, this incredible organization where I have the privilege of practicing my craft. I think about our mission and the values that drive our business. I think about all the incredible leaders, including so many women, that bring Visa to life. Speaking of our women leaders, they lead our business in some of our largest markets across the globe, the US, Canada, Europe. And for the second time in our relatively short history as a publicly traded company, we have once again an amazing woman at the helm of our law department, Julie Rotenberg, a woman who is not only a brilliant lawyer, but also someone who leads our function with that perfect blend of strength and compassion. In closing, I want to thank my Visa family for nominating me for this recognition, and again, congratulate Legal Momentum on this milestone celebration and for constantly pushing the fight for gender equality forward. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lara Rios, and I am a partner at the law firm of Holland & Knight. I am truly honored to be here celebrating with Legal Momentum on the achievement of their 50th anniversary and to be recognized as a next generation leader. I want to acknowledge my colleague and friend, Amy Leader, and the rest of the Legal Momentum board and staff for the tremendous work you do each day to advance the rights of women and girls. Tonight, I was asked to share what gender equality means to me, and I thought immediately of the conversations I have with my children. As the mom of 2 small kids, lately we have been talking a lot about fairness at home. You see, my kids like to say that things are not fair when they don't immediately get their way. And for the parents listening, I'm sure you remember this stage, as it can be quite annoying. On the one hand, I feel like I have to correct this gut reaction of theirs to think of everything as unfair. They should be appreciative of what they have and recognize their privilege in the world. But on the other hand, I can't help but wonder if maybe they are social justice advocates in the making. I mean, aren't we supposed to scream and shout when we witness something unjust? And so in thinking about it this way, I'm proud that they see the world through a lens of right and wrong, because we know all too well, as parents, as women, as minorities, that the world can sometimes be an unfair place. Over the course of my career, I've also thought about fairness a lot in my work and in my life. I have too often seen many of my friends, colleagues, and family treated unfairly. And that's why gender equality matters to me and why I continue to advocate on behalf of my sisters. Too often, I have seen women do the same work as men, and sometimes even more work than men, and get paid less or passed over for that promotion. I have seen smart, ambitious women sidelined because they don't fit a certain mold, or considered less serious because they dare to have children and take the time to raise them. And speaking from personal experience, I am too often the only woman invited to important client meetings and the only woman sitting around the boardroom table. I know that there are other women working tirelessly behind the scenes, but they are too often frequently and unfairly excluded. And we know how they suffer professionally and economically as a result. The research is all there. So I have always believed that it is our responsibility to point out inequalities and unfair treatment and to use the power that we have to push for change in our communities and in our institutions. At work, I use my voice to advocate for changes that I hope will lead to more equality, and I actively mentor the next generation of women and BIPOC lawyers so that they can have an ally as they navigate their own careers. I challenge each of us tonight to use our voice and to not remain quiet, even if it means putting yourself in uncomfortable conversations with the powers that be. As I reflect on this topic, I am thankful to my parents who have instilled in me the values to speak up for myself and for others. And I am thankful to my firm, Holland & Knight, for thinking actively about the issues facing women in our profession and making a commitment to be fair and equitable within our firm. And finally, I am most grateful to my wife, Nicole, who stayed home with our children for 5 years so that I could focus on my career. As a stay-at-home mom, her work went unrecognized and uncompensated by society, which continues to be unfair and unjust. So like my kids, I will continue to scream and shout about that to whoever will listen. Thank you so much.
Wow, these women are the leaders who inspire us all. I'm so proud to lead Legal Momentum and to look to these women to help shape the future. We will all work together. Please be sure to visit the Legal Momentum website to learn more about what we do, read about more next generation leaders, and join us on our mission. Good night.